Starting, connecting to
All right.
cloud, recording. All right, the webinar is live, but let's see, we're adding participants, I see. But Francis, how are you doing? Sorry about technical difficulties here, guys. Sorry, we're the least technical person you know, so hopefully you're able to log on. I'm seeing a few more people consistently. Francis, can you hear me?
Yes, you are all good.
I am good on your end, and we're letting people in, and we're trying to go Facebook Live.
You actually have all the power on that, so I think we'll just upload this to our Facebook later.
Perfect. Sounds great. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Ever since some upgrade, we don't know how to do this quite as well as we used to, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm going to jump right into it since we are a little late. Hopefully, I'm going to learn how to share the screen. Francis, I pray that this works. Francis, can you see my screen?
Yes, screen is up.
Welcome to the October 13th market update from Boulevard Realty. And sorry once again that we were a little bit late, but what I'm trying to do today is give you an overview of where we're at third quarter through the year with one more good quarter to go, and where we're likely to head into the first quarter and second quarter of 2020. I'm just going to jump right into it immediately. I don't believe these statistics have been released yet, but they will be released very shortly. And I just, it's going to be a very interesting headline. Every indicator in September of 2020 was up. I mean, I don't know how to say much more handily other than the market was extremely strong in September of 2020. If you look at the dollar volume compared to a year ago, you're up 42%. The number of closed listings, you're up 29%. The number of pending listings is up 44%. I mean, you can read the chart here. And of course, what I've been saying for 6 months and will continue to say, this entire scenario is based on demand exceeding supply. The number of people wanting a house is far outstripping the number of people who, are putting their house up for sale. So 1 year ago, you had 28,800 houses for sale. And this year, same month, you only have 19,000 houses for sale, a decline of inventory by 31%. So with 31% less homes, you're selling 29% more homes. And there's hardly any way to say it. This trend is unsustainable. If you only have 100 widgets, you cannot sell 150 widgets. At some point, for months and months and months and months now, we have outpaced the number of sales that we've had of homes for sale. The inventory continues to be at a very low threshold, which makes it, very challenging if you're a buyer. You have fewer choices to choose from every month or whatever. So and every other sort of indicator, price per square foot, median price, all of those sort of numbers, I'm not going to harp on those quite so much. What we continue to have is increasing demand and decreasing supply, which has created a marketplace which has propelled us to sell more homes in 2020 than we have in 2019, which was a banner year. We're up between 5 and 9% depending on the indicator. These, of course, are single family homes. I'm going to predominantly talk about single family homes, although we could touch on a couple of other things that are going on. And I'm just going to briefly go over, same thing, even in townhouses. The number of listings in townhouses is declining, multifamily is declining, country homes is declining, which is creating this stress in suburbia and Cypress and, and even more rural areas. The demand is outstripping the supply. And some people, they're just not as mobile as there used to be. There's no particular reason for this lack of supply other than in a pandemic and uncertain times, many people just aren't as upwardly mobile as they might have been otherwise. So we continue to focus on the inventory and the amount of inventory. If I break it down a little bit to certain areas, Area 9, the greater Heights area, of course, this includes Oak Forest and some of those areas. Same thing, we're closing significantly more houses than we sold in September of 2019. You're not adding enough listings to outstrip what you're selling. So you have statistically about the same number of homes, but you have more pending and more sold than you had 1 year ago. So it will continue to create the stress in Area 9. If you look at Area 16, the greater Montrose area, same sort of trend, selling more houses than the year before, not replacing the listings. So your active listings are down and the pending sales are double what they would have been 1 year ago. So you're going to continue to see more stress. If you penned and close more homes than you add, you will continue to have this sort of stress of lack of supply where there's demand. And you're seeing that the demand is still good. Also, not only do you have the reduction of supply, you would naturally think, well, the demand would be reduced, but it's not. The demand is actually increased with a reduction of supply. The greater 17 area, this is the medical center area, West University Place sort of thing, similar sort of thing, selling more houses, don't really have any more listings than you had a year ago, yet you continue to pend significantly more than you did the year ago, which will create additional stress. And this is just recapping inside the loop. The same trend is applying to suburbia, which I have always been kind of surprised at. The lower price point homes, typically in suburbia, you would have seen greater stress and greater decline, but that's simply not the case. There appears to be multiple offer situations, anything at 200, 250, 300 in Pearland and Sugarland and the Woodlands and Spring, Cinco Ranch, that it still applies over there, that you're having greater demand than supply. And so where's this going to lead us? And I keep looking back. If we look at October of 2019, these were the statistics. You had 28,000 houses for sale. We start October 2020 with only 19,000 homes for sale. And I think because of low interest rates and people, pent up demand of people who want to look at a house, one evaluation, if we put a home on the market and there are 10 offers, that means one person gets it, 9 more people are still in the marketplace. I have no indication that there's not going to be continued demand through the months of October, November, and December with a reduction of inventory. And if I just go to the general statistics, this is where I got this from. These will be released later today. The press release will go out from the Houston Association of Realtors. It's going to say, real estate sales all-time high. Real estate on fire. It's going to be very, and I hope and I pray, if any of them are listening, that they temper it into reality. Some of this is pent-up demand where we didn't have the same increase in March, April, and May. And so it is a good indication that the market is healthy and strong. It is not indicative of continued success of this deal, because like I mentioned before, it's unsustainable to have this percentage of increase. It's just not possible to continue with this increase. I think you're going to see an increase probably still in the month of October. I see no trend that would deny it, but at some point you're just not going to have enough houses. If you don't have enough houses, you're not going to be able to sell more houses than you had the year before. And where I get this from is basically this chart here. This is let me just get to all single family houses that have sold in the last year. So this is a chart of what's happening. So if I look at, sorry, I'm not always good with these little charts, and I apologize for that. But here we are, and we're in September of 2020, you have this 19,000 houses for sale. If you go to September 19th, you see that you had 27,000 houses for sale. Well, in October, you sold 7,000, more than you sold in September. So the likelihood is that you were going to sell more in October than you sold in September, because the trends are still that way. You can just look at the pending sales where I was showing you, where they're double what they were the year before. You're likely to still continue that trend. We tend to have a small slowdown in November. If I go to 2019 and I go back to 2018, you see that it's slightly smaller than October, but the month of December is typically a very good month. In December of 2018, that number, was equal to October and more than November. You go to 2019, you see compared to October and November, you sold more houses in December. I think that trend will continue to play out. You're going to do very well in October. November's, we get distracted. It's typically not as good. So I'll be curious to see what the headline says there. The thing to pay attention to is the total year-to-date numbers. And then I think we'll continue to end strong in the month of December, for what is truly a remarkable year in real estate, considering the climate that we have. If you look at the typical first quarter sort of things, January is always the slowest month. So January 2018, you're way down to 4,400. January of 2019, 4,100. January of 2020, we were heading up before we got to the pandemic in March 15th or so. So January's numbers, probably going to be tempered back into reality. It's not a huge month. It's a lot going on. You had every incentive to buy in December for tax purposes, homestead exemptions, those sort of things. People move school years. They don't tend to move their kids at the end of January. If they're going to move, they're going to move in the Christmas break there or whatever. So that's just basically how that's going to work. And so I look at October and I look at November, and you can pretty well forecast what's going to happen. I think there are plenty of people in the marketplace. I'm surprised that we haven't been a little more jittery based on elections. Sometimes elections cause people to create a little pause, but I think because we've had some pent up demand, we're not seeing the exact same thing. These are just some statistics, and I would share these with your clients if you had these sort of things, but we tend to have a good month. If you continue to look at the snapshot every week, which is also going to give you the indication of October, you're saying the same thing. Adding a few listings, thank God we are, but you're still pending more homes than you ever had before, especially compared to the year before. And same thing, we're closing more houses. If you're closing 33% more houses in the first week of October than you sold last first week of October, then you know that the trend is probably pretty well continuing, much like it was in September. You continue to see, an increase. Showings are still very good. And of course, the hits on the website continue to be very, very good. One thing that I've been trying to point out is, where are we 12 months from now? Are we ever going to be able to get caught up here? And I think the only way you could really get significantly caught up is if there was mass migration out of Houston, a net loss of population. I don't think that you're going to see that because, excuse me, what I'm seeing is residential permitting for either remodeling or new construction is just not keeping up. It's harder and harder and harder to even start houses. And so if you're not starting any houses in September of 2020, and you see statistically, it's about in line, and certainly not more houses than we've ever had in the last couple of years, then there's just no way that you're going to be able to get caught up. I just don't see how the inventory can catch up to the demand in the short term, short term being relative, what is that sort of thing? I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and just talk, so where are we again, and I'm always hesitant to forecast for fear of something happening, but and these are my opinions, I believe this COVID-19 situation is just barely in the midway point. So I think we have 6 to 9 more months of this sort of trend, working from home, cautious, people being socially distancing, people being less likely to travel overseas, and or it's not normal. It's the new normal of what it is that it's going to be. So I still think you're going to see some homeschooling, more work from home for another 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, something of that nature. Which means you have a need for another room, a need for an office, a need for a more defined dining room that you can shut the doors or something. So you're going to continue to see that. It's elections are here. Go vote. First day of early voting. I don't care who you vote for, just vote. But I think what you're going to see is post-election, no matter what happens, you're going to see some sort of movement. I think it's unrealistic to think that there's not going to be another round of stimulus. There's too many economists, too many people recognizing that there's going to have to be an additional stimulus package, whether that's building roads, or I don't know what the format of it. I'm not for just handing out money, but there will be another stimulus. May not be until the first quarter of 2021. I think regardless of who sits in the White House in January, you're going to see some sort of stimulus, which is a band-aid, but it does stop any additional bleeding or hemorrhaging or whatever. Some people are in need of this stimulus. We'll figure out a way to get people back on track and back employed, and that's how you're going to pay for it later. But I think you're going to see some stimulus activity. And then I think you're going to continue to see this kind of local emphasis. Like instead of traveling to Europe, you're going to go to Galveston. Instead of you're seeing Airbnbs in rural areas. People are going to Round Top. People are going to Austin. And so you're spending money actually more locally than ever before. Which is in some indirect way helping the local economy when you're a very large economic engine like Houston is or whatever. So at some point, we're going to get past an election. The economy is, of course, the biggest concern. And how can we stabilize the economy? I read multiple newspapers every day. I just don't think America has the wherewithal to go down back into some major lockdown. I think there'd be just revolt. So we have to be cautious. We have to be safe. We have to protect the most vulnerable, but I don't think we're going significantly backwards, even if there were spikes in infection rates or hospitalization. I think there is just a limit to what we can take. And I think the European countries are seeing the same thing. You can try these massive lockdowns, but at some point they're not going to be as effective because there is a limit to what people are willing to take. I want to make sure that I'm not being insensitive to those that are the most vulnerable, but I just don't see us going too much backwards, which would be a jolt to the economy. It's unsustainable. So, and of course, oil is the major factor in the Houston economy. And I'm seeing some of it. I see some of my clients who are in oil and gas who are not going to be able to stay in oil and gas, or not going to be able to stay in oil and gas in Houston, Texas. So some of those people are going to find employment elsewhere or find a different type of employment. And we certainly don't want to be insensitive to that, or to the commercial or small businesses or large businesses that are being impacted by the economic situation that we found ourselves in. But I do think interest rates are going to stay extremely low, because I think the economic forecast is not going to be that great. It's going to be much like we're in now, some winners and some losers, but the overall interest rate is going to stay about the same. And at the same time, I think you're seeing significant increase in cost because you don't have the same amount of trading. Just the construction cost alone have gone up significantly. So the exact same new construction home that was 1.2 million in 2019 is not going to be 1.2 million because it cost more to build that home. The windows cost more, the sheetrock costs more, the wood cost more, the paint cost more. And so there's, even many of these builders we've been visiting with be less likely to get a buyer early on because the amount of return is actually being reduced on a monthly basis. So I think you're going to see some price increases just tied to that. So you see price increases tied to, the bidding wars, supply and demand, boost up prices, but just the sheer cost of materials is going to increase the cost of some new construction to begin with. So then you're to the point, well, if it's so good, why hasn't my listing sold? And I'm certainly in the same boat of many of you, and we've gone down this path. If your listing's been on 30 days and it hasn't sold in what is the best home selling period that we've ever experienced, what am I doing wrong, or what do I need to do? And I'm not sure that we're doing anything wrong, but I do think we have to recognize it's insanity to keep thinking that we're going to do the same thing and it's going to get better. In some scenarios, the market just is getting better, and maybe we need these headlines to instill confidence into the marketplace. And their stark reality, you know, to the buying community, it isn't going to get much better anytime soon or whatever. So in many ways, that will help. But I do think days on the market, you know, are your enemy. You know, so if you're on more than 30 days, we've got to be realistic. You have to do something different. I mean, 30 days is probably this threshold of only the window that you have. And it's kind of like fish. After about 30 days, it's starting to smell, and it ain't going to smell any better. So you're going to have to take it off. You're going to have to refresh the listing. I mean, in some scenarios, you know, if you have a coworker, maybe put it in someone else's name. If you have a broker, put it in the broker's name for, you know, give it something new, take it off, refresh it, change the photos. And then you have to ask yourself, why didn't it sell? Is it price, which sometimes that's the issue, or is it truly something else? And it's supply and demand. The demand is there. And if you're not providing what it is that they want, we have to figure out what it is that they want. And or it's just not going to sell. I mean, I think you got to be realistic. You're going to have to do something different in order to get a different result. So, you know, changing something, painting something, restaging something, emptying a video. I'm really into these videos. I think if you have a house and it hadn't sold, go videotape the owner about what it is they love about that home, some personal testimony about they live there, they must love it. Why, you know, relay that information, you know, and play the little video. Make a 2 or 3 minute video and play that video during your open house. You know, e-blast that video out. Think outside the box. Sell something else. The neighborhood attributes, energy efficiency, something that you hadn't thought of. Have a coworker or another realtor walk through the house with different sets of eyes to promote something else. You're going to have to find some way to refresh those listings so that they reflect new on the marketplace. The consumer wants something different, so you're going to have to really do so. And I think this is the time to do it. And let me tell you, push now in October and November and the first week of December, because the sales are going to be there, and they're not going to be there in January and February. We sell the fewest amount of homes in January and February. And if days on the market are your enemy, you sure as hell don't want to be here sitting March 1 with something that's been on the market for 150 days. It's not going to work that way. The reality of it is, it's just need to be realistic. Pull it off the market, do something, put it back on. I'm not saying taking them off in the months of October and November, because I believe the months are strong. I'm saying take it off for a day, refresh it, enter it under someone else's name, change it up completely, add the videos, add the testimonials, add the top 10 reasons why you should buy this house, do something different in order to refresh it there. And so, you know, the summary. If you're a seller, this is a good time to sell your house. Even if it's been on the market, it's better today than it's ever been in 2020. So hang in there. If you're thinking about selling, sell now. Sell in October and November, first week of December. It's a good time to sell a house. If you're the buyer, and you have to think about this, if it's good for seller, is it bad for a buyer? And that's simply not the case that we're seeing. While it's not easy to buy a house, it's not going to get any easier. The inventory isn't going to spike. The prices aren't going to go down. I mean, and so you might as well buy now before the cost goes up, because it's just not going to get any better. And it's actually better now than it could be later. So it's still a good time to buy a house. You just have to jump into the frenzy and figure out what you can do to sell the house. So it's a great time to sell. It's a good time to buy. Take advantage of low interest rates. Take advantage of maybe houses that have been on the market for a little bit. Then you may not be in some sort of multiple offer situation, but I think it's still a very good time to go and sell a house. So anticipate it being a little bit slower in January and February, and then I anticipate March, April, May, and the spring of 2021 to be very good in Houston, Texas. I think low interest rates, economic stimulus, a little optimism post, the end of COVID-19. I think you're going to see even small businesses being able to, they're not going to have the pressure of the competition of huge expansion of multinational corporations. The commercial real estate world is going to be softer, easier to open a small business. And so I think it's going to be a very good window in the months of, March, April, and May. I'm running low on juice, so I'm having to switch gears over here. Francis, are there any questions or anything that we might have? Let me see.
No questions in the chat.
Give people one more minute to chat if they'd like, or ask anything. Other than that, feel free to send this to your sellers or buyers or whatever, and we can recap it at the Boulevard Realty meeting tomorrow. So thank you all for your joining in today. Sorry for our technical difficulties. Hope you have a great day, and look forward to visiting with you all soon. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth. Bye-bye.